You are listening to Inside the Hive on the Charlotte Hornets on SI podcast. This week, we're discussing the first game back with the Mark Williams, LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller core, where the Hornets lost against the shorthanded Philadelphia 76ers, and also a reliability draft. More to come on that later, discussing which players that you can rely on night in, night out on the Charlotte Hornets team. But as for this week, I am on solo dad duty with my wife away skiing, leaving me at home alone with our little one. I have delegated this week for Sam to host the show, to run the show. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Sam, from here. You take us all the way here for the next hour or so.
Let's get it. I haven't hosted a podcast with somebody in like 2 years. So we're here for this. All right. Just it feels like an equal amount of time we haven't seen some of these guys play.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like for me. But let's get into it. All right. First off, Brandon Miller got hurt. We finally get these guys back, and I take personal responsibility for this. All right, because over the weekend I went to in Charlotte. There's something called the $100 Art Fair, where a bunch of local artists fill up Camp North End. It's a big, vacant, old building, and artists from all over the place, they post their work. Everything's $100, basically. And I found this really dope piece called Lil Brandon, and it's an homage to Little Penny from those commercials back in the 90s. And it's a little kid playing with a doll version of Brandon Miller. I bought it. I bought that.
I want to see this now. Have you got it to hand?
For the YouTube people, it's up right now. Can I go full screen? Is that what?
Nope.
You could operate the ones and twos for the YouTube viewers, but it is a really cool piece. And unfortunately, in the picture, his left ankle is up in the air, so maybe that's a sign of
It's like a voodoo doll picture of Brandon Miller.
Yeah, man. Like, shouts to the artist. But like,
did you drop it on its left ankle as you were like carrying it home, and that's what did it?
So yeah, for real, like a little voodoo situation, maybe. So I take personal responsibility for this. So my bad.
Look, I'm positive on this. I know it's an injury. The first game back, you get the guys, but like we saw Brandon Miller twist his ankle. I want to say 3 or 4 times last year. Yeah. And each time he looked at him and went, oh God, how long is that going to be out? And it was like later that week, he would be back playing and he would be looking pretty good. So ankle sprains are weird. And every time you do one, it's a little bit longer. So it's complicated. But I'm feeling positive that it's going to be like a week or 2 here. I don't think this is going to be a super long one. I thought Tijon Salon was going to be like a month. And he just like came back a week later and looks absolutely fine. So maybe the Hornets' luck is turning.
Maybe. I know it's unfortunate it happened. It's never a good time to get hurt, but it happens in the first game after a long break, and things right now get pretty hectic for Charlotte. They play the 19th, the 20th, the 23rd, the 26th. So it's not a big break. No pun intended in the schedule for a nice little rest period for Brandon.
Now, the question I have is we said that when we had Mark Williams, LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, everyone back playing for the first time, we would have a beer live on the podcast. Does this count?
Yeah, it happened, dog.
So are we okay to go ahead and open up our beer?
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I started already.
After seeing that Brandon Miller injury went down, you're like, I got to go with Philly here. Okay, let's go. Let's have a little beer on the broadcast. Let's celebrate. The core 4 they showed on the broadcast. I'm calling it a core 3. Sorry, Miles Bridges. The core 3 were finally back. Sam, what are you drinking? We've already touched on art. Now let's talk about beer. What are you drinking?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So before I moved to Charlotte, I lived in Lexington, Kentucky. And in Lexington, there's this obviously a big horse country. I believe it's some agricultural company, something like that, where the founder is from Scotland. And he moved to Kentucky. The rolling hills reminded him of back home. And he opened up a bourbon distillery and a brewery under the same roof. and it's called Kentucky Ale Bourbon Barrel because you can only use a bourbon barrel once. That's what makes it bourbon. If you use a barrel twice, it's whiskey, whole different thing.
Oh.
You only use the barrel once. Instead of throwing it away, they slap some beer in there, fortify that thing, bump it up to 8.2% alcohol, and they sell it as bourbon barrel ale, and it's fire.
8.2%. Are you going to make the end of this podcast? Jesus.
We'll see what happens. You'll know if you listen to this, can see the runtime of this. You know, you're in the future. So if this thing is 13 minutes, that's why.
Well, have you heard of Brewdog? Is that a thing over there?
I've heard of it.
I got a Brewdog. It's called Elvis Juice, and it's a grapefruit infused IPA. And it's been sitting in my fridge for a little while. Been waiting for an occasion, and I feel like this was the right time. So the Hornets aren't in Vegas for the NBA Cup, which would have been even more perfect for the Elvis Juice. But we will take the win that we can get.
Yeah, somebody's got to win around here. So
the Hornets didn't win last night,
they
though.
did not. No.
And that's what we're going to start talking with from the start. There was a lot of excitement, a lot of anticipation. Well, like the first couple of points was like a Mark Williams lob. And it was like, you didn't have to wait long for that play to happen. I think it was like the first 3 or 4 possessions. But what's your headline takeaway from last night?
These boys still got a long way to go. Like Mark Williams is back, but he's not back yet. It's clear by his minutes usage, and just in that first quarter alone, he had back-to-back like really bad misses. He was reaching instead of moving and closing out. Like Max, in no world should Tyrese Maxey just pull up for a jumper just outside the lane in front of Mark Williams. All Mark could do is stick his hand out, and there's like zero contest there. And so I think it's clear. It's good to have him back on the floor. Like I'm not downplaying that, but that's one thing that jumped out at me is like Mark Williams, he's back, but he's not back. I don't know when he's gonna be back, but he looks a little ways off still.
Yeah, I mean there were so many subs in that first quarter, and that goes partly in links to your Mark Williams point. It's like he's back, but he's not back because of the minutes limit. Like they played 3 centers in the first quarter in Williams, Richards, and Diabate. And even before Eric Collins had said, like, we've had 11 players, I was like, gee, it seemed like every time there was a stoppage and play, there was someone coming in and out of the game. And I was like, how is this team going to find any flow or consistency? Now, I will say, like, I think if this were to continue for the whole season, I would start to really question some of the decision-making strategy behind it. Like, when you go from Steve Clifford, who is very much of the, like, everyone knows how long they're going to play every single night. You need to know what your role is going to be in your minutes to feel safe and be consistent. When you go to this is the other end of the spectrum. But Charles Lee even said post-game, there was a quote, he said, but when we have health, when we find health consistency, he basically said, we're not going to play as many guys. So I think some of this, you know, when these guys are back, like LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, Mark Williams, and maybe even Nick Richards, I don't know, appear to be on somewhat limited minutes at the moment. And they're all coming back from injuries. And I think that has to be part of the reason. And I also think that's leading to some of this confusion because there were mistakes all over the court last night. I mean, in the first half of the first quarter, there were 2 complete defensive miscommunications. There's 1 offensive possession where everyone was pointing and waving at each other of where to be. I think they missed 4 out of 5 free throws and they had 2 defensive 3 seconds. That's in the first half of the first quarter. Like, it was just mistake-prone basketball. And I think they've actually been less mistake-prone this year. Like, they've missed shots. They've not scored efficiently. They've had guys score against them. But, like, they've seemed organized. They've seen well coached. They've seen brought into the game plan. And you heard it at the halftime report from Blaine Miller, the assistant coach. You heard it post-game. They did not execute the defensive game plan last night. Like Paul George and Tyrese Maxey were really good last night. They made some really tough shots.
Oh, yeah. Jesus.
They were also able to get to the spots that they'd like to make tough shots from. And you could tell that the staff were pretty peeved about that, especially after having so many days off, being able to practice and be able to go over it in the game plan. So there's a lot of confusion about there. There's a lot of mistakes about there. I just think this whole thing is just going to take a little bit of time to come together, right? This is like almost preseason take 2, it feels right now when you're watching it.
Yeah, man. Even like late in the game, Nick Richards and Salon went up for the same rebound, and they fought like they stopped each other from getting the board, and then the ball just kind of fell to LaMelo. Just like weird stuff was going on with the chemistry from top to bottom, and yeah, it's good. It's great to have the bodies back, but it's gonna be a minute, which is unfortunate because the season's going on, whether or not they're ready for it. And
Is
the
it
Hornets
unfortunate?
Hmm?
Is it unfortunate? What did you think was the best outcome for the season?
Oh, 11 seed. 11 seed.
No, but like, do you think that what is the best outcome for the future of this team for this season?
Oh, right now, I think the best outcome, their ceiling still, I think, an 11 seed.
Okay, maybe I should rephrase my point. Is losing this year not better in the long run?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
The best outcome for this team is to see growth from young players,
mm-hmm.
to see excitement, to see the vision, to get people playing together, but then still probably to lose enough games to have like a bottom 4, 5, 6 record so they have a good shot at a top draft pick.
Right.
And
yeah.
Sam, I'm just going to call it how I see it. And I know not everyone sees it like this. And if I was a season ticket holder spending hundreds, thousands of pounds every year to go to games, I would not feel this way. I'm not. This is going to plan. Like, I wrote in the preseason before the year started that the Hornets have a very narrow path like to success this year where like they can't win too many, but they can't be a complete disaster like last year. They need to be somewhere in that middle area where they're exciting, interesting, intriguing, and there's hope and vision, but they're also bad enough that they have good lottery odds. And the way that this whole thing is playing out, it could be, we could look back in 5 years and go, that season was a blessing.
I think that's super valid. And I think it falls in line with what Jeff Peterson talks about or has been talking about being patient and being opportunistic. We're now past the point where guys can be traded. We're seeing a little action around the league. A center got traded, right? So that kind of sets the market for your Nick Richards of the world, right? If it comes to that. And I fully expect the Hornets to be sellers when the time comes.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, exactly. This is a greater goal here. And to making the playoffs this season or being in that mix would only hurt long term because they're not equipped to do it right now. Like if they mortgage any future pieces, including the youth, they are at risk of being, hey, we're in an 8 seed, getting swept, and then being nowhere near the mix again. Like they got to take this thing slow and key on what is working and the players that are working with the young guys because we haven't really seen it. Like we're only seeing it now. These 5 guys, Josh Green, new to the club here, these 5 guys playing at the same time. Is this a winning formula? We don't know yet. And if decision time comes, well, decision time will come in the summer when they decide where they need to improve the roster and where they don't. Hopefully by that time they have a clear picture of what works within this group. And that's for me, it goes back to the word learning. These individuals learning how to play this game, how to play with each other, and then the front office learning and evaluating this group to see what they need. Because watching this, I'm like, there's no one on this roster that can defend Tyrese Maxey. Like, I don't think anybody can do it. You can win a one-on-one matchup every once in a while. I think Cody Martin put up the biggest fight yesterday. But dog, like I was just thinking, like, if somehow the Hornets found themselves in a series with Philly, like Maxey would just be licking his chops every night because this roster isn't built to compete to answer a guard like that. And thankfully, or like fortunately, they don't have to have that type of conversation because they're not in that mix. But it's when you go up against all NBA caliber guys like this, Paul George included, it's like, oh, you can kind of see, like, all right, there's a real divide here in where the Hornets are and where the other team is.
Yeah. Like, it's interesting that in that Philly game, the Hornets got their bigs back, right? Nick Richards, Mark Williams, and Philly was super aggressive on the perimeter. and the Hornets were looking inside a lot, scoring in the paint a lot, which is the opposite of what they were doing basically for the first 3 quarters of this season, where it was all threes, just threes from everywhere, firing away. They've now dried up and they're going inside. I do want, again, and this is where it comes down to like, well, now they've got the bigs, they almost kind of feel like they need to get the ball in there. They've got a mismatch. They've got, Eric Gordon guarding Nick Richards in the post. Like, let's go to him. And it just still doesn't feel like the going inside, although there are moments where it looks like it works, it doesn't feel like it's go-to or consistent enough. And this is them trying to find their way again, of trying to find this balance between these players. And look, I know it's easy to say that this is another rebuilding year in top 5. And there'll be some people listening to this screaming saying that you can't just say that every year and sell hope forever. Like, you can't just say, oh, it's a rebuild. I understand that. But for me, this is the last year. It always has been. It's the lottery protected pick that you've traded. Turns into 2 seconds as long as you finish in the lottery this year. After this year, the new front office has had 18 months to evaluate things. You've got your new coach in place. You've got your front office in place. You're going to have your arena renovations done. Your new practice facility is going to be around the corner. From next year, I'm not saying this. There's nothing that can happen for me to say next year, oh, well, let's go for the top 5 in the lottery again. Like, LaMelo Ball will be going into year 6. Yep. Brandon Miller going into year 3. Mark Williams into year 4. This is it. This is the only year you're going to say this in my mind for like the next 4 or 5 years. After this, it's about pushing on. It's not about selling off veteran players for trade assets anymore. It's about building a competitive product. But there's going to be a little bit more short-term pain. And I know for some, their pain tolerance, it's just reached a maximum. And I see people saying that they won't do season tickets anymore. I understand it. But I really do think the Hornets are around the corner from something that is more positive, especially if the luck breaks their way this draft cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can look at how competitive the team is, as a sign of what's to come. It's just clear that they're not there yet, and that's perfectly fine. I want to talk about Josh Green a little bit because this guy now, with everybody back, at least for now, found where he kind of his we got a hint or a preview of what he's kind of meant to be as the 5th guy out there, and he kind of thrives in this chaos ball. Like, you're not going to see him run a play. They're not going to emphasize him on the floor. But when there's a loose ball on offense or an opportunity to run the floor in transition, that's where I think he's going to find his way. And he did that in the first quarter when everybody was out there. I was like, okay, I was so focused on Williams and Bridges and Melo and Miller. I was like 4 minutes into the quarter. Like, what the hell? I forgot Josh Green was even out there. And I think that's kind of how it has to be. That is, his role in the grand scheme of things. And it's great because, like, Melo comes up with a great steal off a rebound. Loose ball falls right to Josh Green, makes the most of it. Say, oh, yeah, there's Josh Green. I like it. And I envision this being the dynamic going forward when everyone is around and healthy again.
You can't just have 5 scorers out there on the team. No team in the NBA has that. The Cavs play Isaac Okoro. The Oklahoma City Thunder play Lou Dort. The Houston Rockets play Dylan Brooks. Like, you need these hustle, energy, defense, make the other player uncomfortable. Josh Green's certainly high effort. I don't think he's the caliber defender of maybe some of these other guys that are listed there, but he fits that mold and wants to play that role and understands that and accepts that. And that's why I think, even though, pound for pound, a year ago, you would have said Terry Rozier or Josh Green. You're taking Terry Rozier every time, but maybe not after this year's drop off. But for years, I was always saying is that this team needs someone to play that role. Now, my worry is now players are back is that we're going to go back to like 4 points per game, Josh Green.
Yeah.
And even though he doesn't need to be a scorer for this team, there are still moments where I feel like he overpasses the ball and could be a little bit more aggressive and taking some open shots that do come his way, and not throwing as much onto LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. I liked the more aggressive Josh Green when guys were out and healthy, and he was, going to his pull up a little bit more, attacking the rim a little bit more. But I don't know if we will see that.
Yeah, it's a shame because I think Josh Green's a really good basketball player. But if what you have out there is LaMelo, Williams, Bridges, and Miller firing off on all cylinders, then I'll be cool with Josh Green taking a back seat. One guy we've been talking about a lot throughout these weeks here is Vasim Micic. He found his way as a starter, like we saw last year. Now back to the bench and back to the old back to old Micic. What do you think about Micic, man? Like, because I was in my head, I was hopeful that maybe like that this run as a starter with extended play time would kind of build some momentum for whenever LaMelo came back and he became a role player again. But Micic's kind of reverting back to what we saw in the beginning of the season.
Well, actually, I don't think it was quite that bad. What we saw at the beginning of the season was like some of the worst NBA basketball. Like, he touched the ball and it like bounced off his knee, hit his shoe, and bounced out of bounds.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite that bad. But look, it was interesting last night. And Dell's mentioned this like once or twice now. I mentioned it again last night about Micic being out of shape to start the year, and how he is, the ability to play is helping him get in shape. You have to know for Dell to mention that like 2 or 3 times, and let's not forget here, Seth is on the team, Dell's son, right? I don't think that comment is just Dell speculating without him hearing, whether it's from Seth or the coaches or other people around the organization. It was obviously a thing that's well known and accepted enough that Dell was comfortable to essentially call out Micic for being out of shape live on the broadcast. That's definitely contributed. Look, if you just take away the no-look pass to the man in the corner and the pass to the center off the pick and roll, like, Micic is just not going to hurt you in any way. Now, some teams, through the rigors of the NBA season, they probably didn't scout and they're not watching a lot of minutes of like Vasim Micic tape on Synergy to understand how to stop him. But I mean, you saw it last night. I think he had 2 turnovers in a row doing a kick out to the corner that I want to say Tyrese Maxey intercepted both times because he drove, and Tyrese Maxey has watched the Synergy film, was like, I know exactly what Micic wants to do here is kick it to the corner. So when he plays with a big, like Eric Collins has said, like he has a natural ability to find a role man, but he's just too one-dimensional because not every team's going to give you that. It really limits like the rest of your game, and his scoring threat is so limited, especially inside the arc. And 1 in 4 games will hit a couple of threes. He just looks like a slightly overmatched backup point guard who I don't think will be in Charlotte after the trade deadline if they can get a second round pick for him, a late second.
Yeah, I think that's how this story ends for him in Charlotte. Because it's not sustainable. Right, the best we've seen from him is as a starter, and that's not where you want to be. I don't like unless you're the Wizards or something like that, and you're like just fully done with the year. Like, you're not gonna have Micic be your starting point guard. So for his sake, I hope he can find his way as a role guy because he's shown some really nice flashes of what he's capable of offensively.
Well, if he was on a vet minimum, that's one thing, right?
Yeah.
But he's on like $7 million a year, $7.5 million.
Moved him. His number was big
on a playoff team and a contender. Like, that's not nothing. Like, if he was on a minimum contract, I'd be like, great, keep him on the roster as the third guard. Like, if he plays, great. If not, I mean, assuming he'd stay in shape. But you got Trey Mann, Isaiah Wong, KJ Simpson. There's just not a drop off. A big drop off from all those guys. Micic probably gets you in your offense more. He probably helps like your big a little bit more than any of those guys, but they can help in other ways that he can't.
So we haven't talked about really LaMelo and Bridges making their return as well. Any initial thoughts on what you saw from Bridges and Ball in their first game back in a minute?
We have to acknowledge the incredible end of half sequence because it was fun, right?
Yeah.
That's
The oops, back-to-back alley-oops.
video game stuff, alley oops, like from ball to Bridges. It was just that's what everyone envisions when you looked at it on paper at the start of the year. I think Miles got pretty lucky last night about getting like a lot of open looks at the rim where like the team just lost him, or he had defensive breakdowns, or he caught lobs in transition. I have to say, straight after that like exciting 2-possession sequence with his back-to-back alley-oops, like LaMelo Ball just gave away the stupidest foul in the world, and Kyle Lowry 35 feet away from the basket when they're in the bonus with 20 seconds left, which just sums up the Hornets. It's like, oh, they're so exciting, yet so fucking stupid at the same time. But I wasn't that impressed by Miles Bridges' game last night. I know the box score looked good. I thought his floor game was awful. I thought he made several terrible turnovers, and it says he only got 3. I don't know what the scoring table was doing, or they credited him to someone else. There was at least 4 or 5 possessions where he made really poor decisions with the basketball and at bad moments in time, and ones that led to like opponent threes and opponent runouts. And he admitted it after the game. He said that as well. Like, and he's still not shooting good enough ball from deep, right? For the lack of kind of defense that he's bringing so far. So look, it's still early for both of those guys. I think he had four dunks in the game, which was the high for quite a while.
Yeah.
So that is positive, but I still like view him now as like in the half court as a below rim finisher. It's still all like these kind of like driving, hooky, offhand attempts. So I was not all that impressed with Miles Bridges last night, despite the box score. What was it, 24, 9, and 5 or something like that?
Yeah.
I know I'll be in the minority in this one. I just wasn't impressed.
So thinking about this group and them making a leap. I think their biggest opportunity to make a leap is with the power forward spot, and I'm not convinced Bridges is the best man for this group. I'm not gonna say that with chest right here, right now, because we haven't seen enough of it. But I'm just like in my head thinking like, man, like we need better. Like I'm like, damn, can we get Jonathan Isaac like for this spot? Like that's all I can think about. And I think their best opportunity to improve next season is from that spot. But I'm saying that we got 1 foot in that one. You know, I'm not fully there yet. It's so early in this grouping.
Well, we've not, like you say, we've not seen enough
of
any of these guys together, healthy, like, and we have to wait and see that. But like, again, you can't always wait for the full sample size because it might never come.
Right.
If you're asking me right now as well, like if this team were to be a playoff team, would Miles Bridges be on the team? I would lean no right now. That could change. He's got enough talent to change my mind for the remainder of the season. But if I have to make that guess right now, that's what I would think. I've got an article coming out, and there's a couple of Miles Bridges trades. Look in this article. I can preview one of the trades, and I'll give you the players, and you can tell me which one you'd rather hear about.
Okay.
Julius Randle or Zion Williamson?
Oh shit! Give me Zion.
Okay, so I have no idea what Zion Williamson's trade value is. None. Mm-hmm. Like, is it positive? Is it negative? Is it level? The guy can't stay on the floor. There's loads of questions surrounding his work ethic. Charlotte has enough Bojangles and barbecue and bad injury juju that Zion and Charlotte might be a really, really, really bad idea. But if he was to be on the court healthy, his game really complements LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller's extremely well because he needs an interior scorer. He can handle the ball. They can spot up. It would give the Hornets probably one of the most exciting young 3 cores in the entire NBA. I just have no idea what it would take to get Zion Williamson. And if I'm in a job, do I want to pin some hopes on trading for Zion Williamson? That's a bold move. a lot of it you'd probably rely on like your background intel on a lot of the stuff, which we just don't have a good enough insight into to really know. But you could do Miles Bridges, the Dallas 2027 first, and salary filler. I think on like Seth Curry for Zion Williamson. So the Pelicans get Bridges, who will probably be more reliable in the court for them. They get a first round pick. The Hornets get the dice roll that is Zion Williamson. And look, if he is injured a lot, there is like injury protection and worded in his contract that the Hornets could essentially just cut him and not pay him the rest of his deal because he's like $33 million per year for the next 4 years. So it could just be like viewed as like almost worst case scenario. You'd pay a late first round pick, which is the Dallas first, to salary dump Miles Bridges. Like that's if Zion was just like he got here and he was like no chance. What are your thoughts? That's one of the trades in my article coming out. I mean, it's a wild card trade. I understand that it won't be for everyone.
So, I mean, okay. So I'm a fan of narrative and him coming back to North Carolina. That could be something for him to get his act together. Like I could see guys in a room selling themselves on that of like Zion's going to show out. He's back in the Carolinas, and all the nonsense, the stuff with the girls, the stuff with the food, all that is behind him, and he'll focus on ball. I think there's an element to that is very interesting. And then, not to mention the crazy upside he still has. Even he's 24 now, 25. He still, I think, still has a crazy ceiling that he hasn't come close to touching yet. So, I'm like, depending on how the lottery goes, like this was something I would do in the summer, because if they have a chance to add a really big rookie, then that makes the Zion contract more palatable because it kind of offsets a rookie deal and this crazy big contract. Because then by the time Zion's deal's up, it's time to pay the like, let's pretend they get a top 2 pick, the first or second pick in the draft, like that his portion of, no pun intended, the pie would open up and you can give it to the rookie. So yeah, I mean, I would consider that heavily in the summer, not so much this year because I want to see how the lottery goes.
And another thing that could be a factor here, let's not forget, right? Rick Schnell. Where did the Hornets do training camp this year? Duke. Who did they sign to training camp this year? Harry Giles. Where did he go to college? Duke. Where did Rick Schnell go and play every summer on these camps? Duke. Who was he a massive donor for? Duke. Right. There is a lot of Duke connection there. And like you said, Zion coming back to North Carolina, where he went to college. I imagine Rick Schnell will have watched Zion and enjoyed his play in his time at Duke a lot. And might have even contributed to behind the scenes him getting there, right? In some small way. So this was my completely thing that I cannot prove, but I do think there is some love for Duke in the organization now that maybe there wasn't under the former regime, let's say, of Mitch Kupchak and Michael Jordan.
So, all right, while we're living in pretend land, okay?
Yeah.
You have 2 paths, 2 Duke players floating out there. Cooper Flagg, Zion.
Yep. And Connor Knuckle.
Rick is probably going to lean towards Cooper. If there's an opportunity to fully tank and go after that, or do you go after Zion?
You go after Cooper and Zion.
Oh, hey. Option C, all the above. Go for it.
No, you go Cooper. I mean, like, he brings everything that this Hornets team needs.
But with part of it, like the monkey paw of it, is you don't know if you're going to get Cooper Flagg, right? So, like, in this scenario, this is saying, all right, we're going to pack it in. We're going to shut guys down. We're going to trade off everybody we possibly can. And we're going to make this team as bad as possible to hope on lottery night it goes our way. Or we put our feelers out now and go after Zion in the summer. Like, would you risk the flag Would you risk Cooper Flag or make the Zion deal in the summer?
I still don't see why they're mutually exclusive.
Okay. I guess if part of it would be like moving, part of tanking would be trading Bridges now for picks or expirings. Like getting
so you
rid of
don't
whatever
have
you
that
would give
piece
up.
to get Zion.
Exactly, yeah.
I get you.
Because like, if you're going to make the team bad as possible, you're moving Bridges and a few other guys, right?
I would keep Bridges now in that scenario. If I had good intel on Zion in the background and whatever, I would keep Bridges and hope that he can increase his value a little bit. I would probably go down that path.
Okay.
Anyway, let's exit pretend land. That was fun. We're gonna have lots of time for trade stuff after Christmas as we approach the trade deadline. There's gonna be a lot of time for that. But I thought that would be an interesting one for you because you brought up about Bridges' future on the team.
It's good thought
exercise. I've been working on that piece today. It's fresh in my mind, so I just wanted to float it out past you, and I can see you're interested.
Listen, I'm all for that. I'm here for that. It's fun. That's fun stuff. I'm gonna get behind for sure. You want to get into our draft now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this is something I'm doing on my YouTube channel, and I want to ask James about this because throughout the season, guys are going to come and go with injuries or availability. Guys are going to have peaks or dips in form. But now that we're, 20-something games into the season, I think we have a pretty good idea of what some of these guys do well and what they don't do well. And as a viewer of this team, you have a certain level of confidence in an individual, whether it's on the offensive end, defensive end, in totality. And for me, I wanted to talk to James about just kind of who he prioritizes in what would be his kind of confidence rankings or reliability rankings for the guys on this roster. So we're going to go back and forth drafting these guys, not based off who we think is the best player. We're not building the best team. This is all about confidence and reliability from our point of view on these guys' ability to be the best version of themselves on any given night. So with all that being said, hopefully that all makes sense. James has the first pick, and you're on the clock.
All right. With the first pick in the reliability draft, I select Isaiah Wong. No, I'm joking.
I wrote it down. You got me so good. I got W-O down.
I know it's exciting, people, but let's hold the phone a little bit. He's played 4 games. I'm interested to see where this goes in your rankings. And I thought about taking this player with the second pick because I think he might still be there with me, but I'm gonna go with my board. Nick Richards. I just feel when Nick Richards plays now, I know what I'm going to get every single night. He's going to consistently be a pest on the boards, give you offensive rebounding, going to get to the free throw line a lot, and again, be a reliable free throw shooter. You can even rely on him for an illegal screen and maybe a goaltend a game as well. Like, you can copy and paste a lot of the Nick Richards games, and this is a little bit harsh because he has got, I think, better over the course of the last 3 seasons, a little bit better each year. But there is never a question when Nick Richards goes into the game that I go, "Oh, is this going to be a Nick Richards night? Is he going to compete tonight? Is he going to execute tonight? Is he going to fight and play with the energy he needs to tonight?" Like, those are not the areas of the game that Nick Richards struggles with, and it's not one thing that I have any concern or think about for 1 minute, and that's why I think he still remains one of the most underrated players in this team because he's just low hassle, low stress, does his job. And I think he's the most reliable player on the team in his role.
I think that's a super solid pick and perfectly within the spirit of this. So if you're driving right now and you're like, he picked Nick Richards first, this is what we mean. This is what we're talking about. And you're going to see, I'm going to double down on that with my pick, Cody Martin, who is the only Hornet to have played in every single game this year. And so when you talk about reliability or confidence in a guy, it doesn't get much better than that. And then with Cody, especially, like, I want to just give him so much, like, kudos and respect and flowers for being this reliable after missing all that time the last couple years. Like genuinely, I thought his career was going to be over with the amount of time he was missing, and just the fact that he was having these injury reports with commas in them. Like it was this and that out. It was trending in the wrong direction for Cody. And thus far through this season, I think he's been incredibly reliable from an availability point of view, but also from a Swiss Army knife versatility point of view as an offensive guy and defensive guy. Like it's been peak Cody Martin pre all these injuries, playing multiple positions, defending multiple positions, and being that real true glue guy that knows his role on the team. And looking at like last night, for instance, I think he played almost 30 minutes off the bench. You know, he's one of those dudes you're gonna lose time when guys come back, and like when everyone's fully back, and he's still finding a way with mostly everybody back to stay on the floor because he's that damn good, and he's still consistent throughout it all. So shouts to Cody Martin because he delivers basically every night, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I had him third in my rankings, so he was up there for me too. Like, he brings the same mentality and energy every single night, throws his body around, takes the same shots every night. I think the reason I didn't have him quite as high as you was he kind of like hot and cold shooting nights. I don't always know what I'm getting from Cody Martin, the shooter, and he has some weird clutch struggles of like dribbling the ball off his foot, bad turnovers, blown layups late in games. So I also have a little bit of like worry again about that like consistency, reliability, those clutch situations. It was close, but they were my tiebreakers that I bumped him down a little bit. But I think a perfectly fair pick. Okay, I'm up next for number 2. Starts to get harder, by the way, here. And I will say, I think this exercise in some ways does favor centers because it's easier to be consistent with centers because of their role and what they do of like rebound, block shots, do putbacks and dunk. Like that's just something you can rely on more night in, night out and doesn't rely on many external factors. So I could have just like gone really center heavy early. I decided not to do that. My number 2 pick is LaMelo Ball. Look, the efficiency will change each night, but especially this season, he's going to play the exact same way every single night, full of confidence, taking the same shots, the same crazy threes. He's going to be an offensive hub with really high usage. And this year he's delivered pretty consistently. There's only one way you can average as many points that he is right now is by being consistent. Because if you have nights where you score like 7 points and something like that, that's going to pull you down so quickly. I think he's leading the NBA in 3-pointers made per game right now, again, showing that consistency. And even the defensive end, I know what I'm going to get. You're going to get some great deflections and steals. And he had some actually really impressive moments in that Philly game where I thought he was like getting on the floor and playing tough and physical, which was cool. But you're also going to get the bizarre fouls. You're going to get the questionable like on-ball defense. So it's not always good, but it's pretty reliable. I know what I'm expecting when LaMelo Ball steps on the court. And you know, he has to shoulder a pretty heavy load this year, and he's done that well. So obviously injuries have been a concern, but I've gone past the point of like wincing now when I see LaMelo Ball drive. I'm beginning to move past the ankle concern. Be too early, I know, but just when I watch the games, that's where I'm at.
I think that's super valid. I was very tempted to go LaMelo last time. And your center talk has me scared, so I'm gonna take one now. Because I think the guy you're gonna mention was I had second the first time I did this on my channel, and that's Musa Diabate. I'm gonna scoop up my big man.
Item fifth.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've just been so impressed with him, and again, it's about a guy being the best version of himself every night, and the expectation for him is a lot lower than a lot of the guys on the team, especially being a two-way guy. But this dude delivers. He absolutely delivers as advertised. Super tough, like dynamic rebounder. And, you know, offensively is whatever. But that's part of it. Like, you don't expect it. So anything you get on that end outside of a dunk is a blessing because that's all you're really going to get are dunks. And so Diabate is one of these guys that I'm like low-key kind of sad about because like when Mark Williams is back playing 30 plus minutes a game, I'm worried about what's going to do to my guy Diabate. But I'm hopeful that he could find his way. And if he just plays this consistently throughout the rest of this year with everyone back, then he should be fine. And if for nothing else, teams around the league will see what he's doing. And if it doesn't work out here in Charlotte, I think Diabate is carving a path for himself in the NBA for a very long time, doing exactly this because every team in the league could use what he does.
You talked about the rebounding, and that's really obvious. What I don't think gets enough credit is his switch defense. Like, when he switches out onto perimeter players, like some of the best players, they switch him out on there and leave him on an island by himself, and he moves his feet, gets low, gets his hands wide, bothers dribblers. Like, it doesn't go perfect all the time, but like he did it against Paul George a good few times and Tyrese Maxey last night. And George will know him well from his Clippers days. We'll got up against him loads of time in practice. And there was, I think, one time that he even forced maybe like George to, I think, dribble off his foot or do a turnover. And those other times that, George is able to still get to a spot. But he is a super incredible offensive rebounder. And he's also got defensive versatility. He's not just a drop big. He's not Andre Drummond, right? He's going to hoover up rebounds, but he's also going to be a sieve defensively. And he's going to take, in the old years of Drummond, he would take loads of shots, right? Even though he didn't have really an offensive game, he felt like he deserved them. Whereas Diabate was like take 1 or 2 shots in 20 minutes. And to score well in this reliability draft, you need to be someone who plays to your strengths. You need to be someone who plays to your role pretty well. And he does that. So, look, I don't think Diabate should be in the rotation moving forward. Like, once Mark Williams' minute limit's gone, no. Like, I have Mark Williams, I have Nick Richards ahead of him in the pecking order. I think he will still get enough play either through injuries to one of those two, foul trouble to one of those two, maybe a Nick Richards trade that I think could potentially happen at the deadline. I think there's a lot of paths forward for Musa to still carve out a role on this team in the near future, but I wouldn't have this 3 bigs playing a night. I think that has to go, and sooner the better if this team want to be competitive. All right, Musa was 5th on my board, so I'm going to go the 4th person who is still there with my 3rd pick. And I'm going to go Brandon Miller. And I know it's boring to pick LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller in the reliability draft when it's not about the best players, but I think we've seen 2 versions of Brandon Miller this year. I think when he was playing with LaMelo, he's been pretty inconsistent. And when he's been playing without LaMelo, I felt like he was pretty consistent. He had 8, 9, 20-point game streak. Like, he was averaging good number of rebounds, assists. He is one of those players who kind of comes to life for moments in games, like 2-3 minutes here, rather than scoring evenly throughout the game. He'll have a lot of scoreless quarters, and you're like, what's happened to Brandon Miller? And then all of a sudden he'll have 11 points in 3 minutes. I can feel he's got a lot of frustration this year with how he's being officiated. I can definitely sense that in the games. But still, when you talk about outside scoring, good passing, craft around the rim, mid-range, and pretty good effort on the defensive end with deflections, I know what Brandon Miller is going to give you night in, night out. I think at the moment, the kind of game-to-game shot variation is inconsistent. But if you look at the overall body work for the season, it looks okay. And I think it will look better.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Miller's awesome. Like, I don't want to downplay how awesome he is.
And he was really consistent last year. Sorry, someone forgot. Like, last year he was super consistent. And I took that into account a little bit. And I have with some of these other players. It's like, well, how long? Like, how much do we count just 1 year versus previous years? And last year as a rookie, like, he was incredibly consistent considering the situation. And I think that counts for something too.
Yeah, and I think, like, largely he's ahead of track too, just as a developmental guy. Like, I think he moves around like a 4th-year guy, and it's just barely his 2nd year. I think Brandon Miller's shown a lot of development in a very short amount of time, and it's only going to continue. Just for the record, I'm not anti-Brandon Miller. That's why I haven't drafted him yet. But I will draft Josh Green next.
Wow.
Now, using my Cody Martin math, okay? Josh Green has played 24 games, 2 fewer than Cody, equal to Diabate and Seth Curry, mind you. But Josh Green, along with those guys, have been consistent pieces of this season so far. And when I say reliability, I'm talking about what Josh Green operates as a role player. I get frustrated as hell that he doesn't shoot more because he can really help this team out offensively if he lets it fly. I don't know what it's going to take to pull that out of him when everybody's here, but we saw glimpses of it when the guys were out. And I talked about this kind of earlier in the podcast. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on Josh Green right now, but I know what Josh Green's going to give us every night. And I have pretty low expectations on the field goal attempt side, but everywhere else is really consistent. And I think that he's a quality addition to this roster. And I'm hopeful that, I don't know whether it's confidence or Charles Lee just flat out telling him and running plays for him, whatever it takes to get him more involved offensively. He'll be higher on my list next time we do this. But for now, I got him third, really sixth as we kind of go through all this whole list here. But Josh Green, number 3 for me.
Yeah, defensively, I agree with you. Like, he'd be right up there. Offensively is where I fell off the Josh Green bandwagon. I just like in 9 games this season, he has scored 5 points or less. And for someone who is playing as many minutes as Josh Green is in this team, he's at 28 minutes per night. Like, for me, like, there is a little bit like feast or famine. There are some games where Josh Green just like you forget he's out there offensively, and but that's where also, I saw the inconsistency.
It may be because it's fresh in my mind because they just played him, but it's not like Kelly Oubre who would have these crazy shooting volume nights with no production. He's just not shooting. He's just opting out, and that sucks. I wish he shot more, but I don't view him as being a negative player offensively. He's just kind of not participating.
But what did we just say before? For this exercise, you want someone to place their strengths. The reason Josh Green shoots such a good percentage from 3 is because he takes shots that he knows are within his wheelhouse, right? He knows he has spots on the floor, and if he's got a certain amount of space, and if he catches the ball a certain way, he knows I've got a good chance to make this an efficient clip. Whereas other players would be like, the pass was kind of off at my toes, but I'm going to shoot it anyway. Josh Green doesn't do that. He always makes what he thinks is the right play, and that's why he has that. So I do see where you're going at it, but for me, it's just I didn't like the inconsistent on the scoring. I find that the opposite of reliable right now.
Okay, fair.
My next pick, and I don't know if he was on your board, but I'm going Grant Williams.
So, all right, time out. That's not fair, okay? All right, you can go ahead, but I would have taken Grant like 2 overall.
Yeah.
If he was there, but go ahead. Shouts to Grant. Miss you, Grant. Miss you every day.
I'm giving Grant a shout out because, look, his playmaking in dribble handoff game, his 3-point shooting, his defense on guys like Giannis or anyone else you wanted to put him on, like, he brought it every night. The intensity, the communication, the leadership. Like, whether some nights the 3-pointers went in, some nights they didn't. But I knew what I was getting in, like, all that connective side of the game, and the kind of the communication side, leadership that I already mentioned. Those intangibles, I know what I'm getting every single night. So I would have Grant Williams next on this list, even if he does only maybe have one functioning knee and leg right now.
Well, I'm gonna go with someone who has one functioning hip. Okay, I'm going Trey Man, because Trey was on a tear. He kind of hit a slump before he got hurt, which sucks. But the first 7-8 games of the season, you combined with what we saw going out of preseason, this guy looked like he was primed to have a true career year in a contract season. A super dynamic scorer on all 3 levels. It's a super aggressive player. and it kind of got, got cut short. So I'm excited to get him back. Obviously, the second unit could certainly use him, and maybe that's not good news for some of the other guards, but Trey Mann, when healthy, before the last last game or two, really had a lot of love for, and a lot of confidence in out there.
All right. I think I trade ninth for my overall list. I always think it's hard when you're a sixth man scoring guard type, which is what his role was. Those players, just by like the nature, because of their size and their difficult shot diet that they take, they always have an element of being like inconsistent and being a bit yo-yo up and down because for everything that I said. So I went a little bit lower, but for my last pick of my starting five, I'm going Miles Bridges. And again, this is more of a legacy pick than this year, because when Miles Bridges has played in recent years, he's been, when he's not suspended, very often very available. He's always going to rebound the ball at a high level. He's going to be able to get his shots up from beyond the arc, whether they go in again, but he's going to be able to get them. Always be good for some alley-oops in transition. I don't feel great about this pick. We're running out of players to pick. The defense is going to be consistently below average and downright bad at times. I'm maybe talking myself out of it as I talk, but I don't know who else to pick, so I'm just going to go Miles Bridges.
Fair, because we're doing 5. That's 10 guys.
Yeah.
You're in the. You know what I mean? You get down into the weeds a little bit.
Yeah, it can't be Tijon Salon. Like Isaiah Wong's not played enough. Nick Smith, KJ Simpson, all those guys haven't played. Seth Curry doesn't play enough. It ain't Micic, that's for sure. Like Mark Williams has played 5 games in basically 2 years. Daquan Jeffries has played 3 games. There's not a lot left to go, so I'm going Miles Bridges.
Well, I'm going Taj Gibson.
That's, you know what? You're right. I should have gone Taj Gibson. I'm jealous of your last pick.
Like, Taj is not going to spot up for threes. You know what I mean? He's not going to bring the ball up. He is going to get on the block. He's going to give the best effort he possibly can at his advanced stage. And something good may happen. Something bad may happen. But Taj is going to put the effort in down low as a hard-nosed vet. And that's not nothing. And so I'm happy to select him with my last pick.
Okay.
You want to recap it real quick? Oh,
yeah. Let's recap.
Okay. So James is, again, this is not a like lineup, but for the purposes of this, James is 5, Nick Richards, LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Grant Williams, Miles Bridges. And then for me, I got Cody Martin, Moussa Diabate, Josh Green, Trey Mann, and Taj Gibson.
A reliability draft for a consistently unreliable team. That's the results you get, folks.
Yeah. when you like kind of
add Zion Williamson, it gets worse.
Oh, but we see how this team has 7 wins or whatever. Like this is how I get there.
Yeah. Right. Sam, that is everything from us. And this is our last show before probably of 2024 that we're going to record. Take a little break over the festive period. It's important for a podcast host to have some time to take back, and we'll come back refreshed for the new year. What I will have at some point in the next week or 10 days or so is a podcast episode with Matt Sponhour of the Stay Hot podcast. Big Hornets fan Matt records an NFL and NBA podcast, which is very popular ones. You'll probably know Matt Sponhour from TikTok if any of you are on there. We're going to be ranking our players from least to most likely to be back on the roster a year from now. And we've done it for the last 3 years in a row. And we always go back and we look at our predictions from the year before, which is always good fun. So that'll be in your podcast feeds in the next 7 to 10 days. I'm recording it later this week with Matt, and I'm really looking forward to it. But that is it from us. And Sam, we might not be on another StreamYard here for a little bit of time. What are your festive plans?
Oh, staying local, just taking in some of the Charlotte festivities. There's a lot going on in Charlotte around this time of year, so always nice to get out and see, like, support local businesses and local vendors this time of year. Because through, like, we have an area called Camp North End, or in like South Charlotte, there's always something cool going on. So be taking in all that, and especially now that the weather's kind of peaked up a little bit. It was a little cold last couple of weeks, so it's nice out. We're in the 60s, I believe. So things are heating up in Charlotte just in time for Christmas.
Nice. Well, I am off to my in-laws for Christmas, which I'm very much looking forward to. Gonna have a great time, and I'm looking forward to Jess being back from her skiing trip. So yeah, it's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a fun time with our little one. He's 17 months now, so he's getting to a fun age where he's really enjoying stuff. So, Sam, I hope you have a great Christmas, listeners, wherever you are. Even if you don't celebrate, I hope you have a good holiday vacation period. And we will be back in 2025. And we did this last year. I'm glad I remembered this. Right. Sorry, this is not scripted, but the Hornets, we will probably next record on maybe January 6th. Okay. The Hornets play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games by the time we next record. Sam, what is your record prediction in those 8 games between now and when we next record? And to give you time to think, I will recap the schedule also for the listeners. They are at Washington, at Philadelphia, again for a 4th time this season. Home to Houston, who they played on opening night of the season and won. At Washington again. At home to Oklahoma City. At home to the Bulls. And then a 2-game road trip against the Pistons and the Cavaliers. What is your prediction for that 8-game stretch?
So you can, I think,
and if it's below 2 wins, then I know what you've done is you've not given us 2 wins against the Wizards, and people are gonna be coming with you for pitchforks.
No, so I have 2 fingers up. I got 2 wins locked in for the Wizards, and then 1 just random W in the mix somewhere. The Hornets are capable of catching somebody off, like how they beat Indiana, like just one of those nights things are going off. I'll give them 3 wins in that time.
I'm normally last year. If you remember last year at this time, remember the losing streak that went on? What was it? 16 games in the end? Was it 16?
Well, let's see.
Last season, it started around this time, and me and Chase looked at the schedule. I think there was 10 games at the time, and we looked through, and I think I went for 1 game, and Chase went 2, and they actually won 0. And it was part of, I think it was a 16-game losing streak that they had.
I'm sorry, it looks like 12.
Was it 12?
From December 11 to January 1st. They beat Sacramento and then lost like 8 more after that. They broke the streak and then added another
12-game streak. There we go. And underrated, by the way, the Hornets have now won only one of the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Only won one of the last 12 games, so it's not looking too great here. I'm gonna go 4. Is that really positive? And I don't even know if they'll get 2 wins against the Wizards, because the Hornets lose to terrible teams, like it's what they do, and then they'll turn around and beat Philadelphia again for the first time this season. So I'm gonna say 4. I'm saying 1 win against the Wizards. I then think they'll beat the Sixers for the 4th time, 4th attempt, 4th time lucky. And I'm saying that they're going to beat the Bulls and the Pistons. There we go. I'm going 4 wins. Weird things happen over the holidays. People want to be back home in bed. This team's getting healthy. I feel like they'll have the bit between their teeth because they want to prove it after people getting back. So, they're a young team, haven't got as many kids around who they want to be home for at Christmas like some of these other vet teams. So this could look really stupid. I know the safe thing here is to go 2 or 3, but I'm going to go 4.
I like the positivity. No, I'm here for it. I hope you're right. I really do.
Yeah. All right, Sam. Have a great time over the holiday period. It's been a pleasure. And I will see you in 2025.
Yes, sir. Take care.